Hey everybody, my name is Adam Cohen. I'm the Vice President of Broadcasting here at NCMA Boston. Welcome to our Get to Know the Speaker series. So we have an event coming up here in about a month if you're listening to this as we record on September 19th, 2023, called Hot Topics in Government Contracting. I am joined by Michelle Currier and Eric Crusius, as long as I didn't butcher Eric's last name. Michelle is the Chief Learning Officer for NCMA HQ, and Eric is a Government Contracts Partner at Holland & Knight. Michelle and Eric, welcome.
Hey,
thanks for having me, or us.
Of course. We were having a lot of fun before this got started. We were talking food, we were talking bars, we were talking so much stuff. But today, we're going to keep this to why you all are here, and that's to get to know the speakers. So let's start off with a pretty basic, fun question. Michelle, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh. As Eric pointed out, I'm older than the hills.
Oh my gosh.
Government contracting for 45 years, was with the government for 45 years, and I am coming up to a year and 9 months of being the CLO at NCMA. My joy and passion is connecting with the workforce, which is how I found Eric, because he has that same passion. And we used to have competing sessions at the NCMA events. And one day we looked at each other and said, hey, let's join forces. And we've been together how long, Eric?
It's got to be at least 7 or 8 years, I would think.
Yeah. So over to Eric.
Sure. And, Michelle's been doing this for 45 years. That means she started when she was a toddler, which is amazing to begin
sucking
with.
Up right? Good. I like that.
Am I too late? Is it? Or
it's too late.
Makes up for the pre-show comment.
Please arrive in Boston with a very large gift.
We'll see what my check bag can take.
Yeah. Just make sure it's not on government money. You have 10,000 regulations you're going to have to follow.
That's right. Check the gifts laws. So I've been practicing law since 2001. So for the last 22 years, I've been really concentrating on government contracts since 2010. And I'm a government contracts lawyer at Holland & Knight. I really try to emphasize the practical over like just a long legal memo with a lot of citations on it. And I think NCMA is great because you didn't ask this question, but NCMA is wonderful because it connects government to people. Mm-hmm. And it's really a place where the government and industry can talk. Yep. And I know it's a passion of Michelle's, it's a passion of mine. We'd all do a lot better if we just talk to each other a little bit. Yeah. And that's one reason why I like to participate. Yeah.
So I have to just brag a little bit about Eric. His magic is that, as he said, he knows all of the new policies and regulations that are out. And he also has sniffs out the ones that are coming. And so in our presentations, we share some of the things that folks need to be aware of so that when they do become policy and regulation, that they're ready for implementation, both on the government and the industry side. And what I love about teaming with Eric is I have always represented the government view and Eric has represented the industry view. And I just don't know why he just doesn't get it.
That's why they make such a good team.
He's, if you could just see things my way, then things would be, go a whole lot smoother.
I can't wait to see you two in person.
The problem is I get it too well because industry is always right, of course, and the government is never right. But I think we could all learn from each other a little bit.
Yeah,
absolutely. So before I get into the next question, if you're wondering what this is for our Hot Topics in Government Contracting. This is going to be on Wednesday, October 18th. I'll plug the event in a little bit here. But, I kind of want to start off, and I'm going to throw this out to both of you. Michelle, you're more than welcome to start. Eric, if you want to, because I'm really curious of Eric's answer. Because, there's always this story. Now, I remember when I was interviewing, when I worked at BAE Systems with the director of contracts, and he made a good point. He goes, okay, so how did you get into this field? Because he goes, no one goes into, college to get into government contracts. It's a field you happen to fall into. And the longer I've been in this field, he's right. This is a field you just happen to fall into because Eric's a lawyer. I've always enjoyed law. It's like when you hear and you think government, you think, oh, you must be some sort of an attorney. Well, no, there is this other field called government contracting, and it's not exactly the most well-known thing on the planet, but it is so important. So what got you both into contracts?
Eric, you go first.
Okay. I think like by most people who get into government contracting, I was dreaming of it in high school. And then from the very moment I took an AP history class and they talked about how the contractors helped during the Civil War. No, it was because I had a job. I had a job offer at a small government contracts firm in Tysons, Virginia. And long story short, I was practicing law, doing complex commercial litigation, working about 90 hours a week in New York City. My wife got into William and Mary for her MBA. So we moved to Williamsburg, Virginia for 2 years in 2008. And then our goal was to get to DC. So we were both applying for jobs in DC. And I happened to get a job at a government contract shop in more than 13 years ago. And the rest is history. And the thing about being a litigator is you have to consume lots of information and kind of figure out what it all means and put it into practice for your client. And I used that skill as a litigator to learn government contracts as quickly as I could and get immersed in it. And I've been learning ever since. And I think Michelle, even as the chief learning officer, is still learning some things from time to time. So
absolutely,
that's what makes it so much fun. I mean, I'm not the most exciting person at a cocktail party
come
saying government
on.
contract is fun,
Tell
but it
me
is.
it's not so.
But it's always evolving. Like there's always something new. There's new regulations that come out in the Federal Register that mean something on a weekly basis. There's memos that come out from the government. There's policies. So our ground is always shifting, and that's what makes it wonderful. It just makes it so interesting, and it makes it so my kids will go to college because things are always changing. So there'll always be a need for a lawyer.
A true story. So I got into contracts, and you're going to laugh. In college, I wanted to not go to classes. So rather than skipping class, there was a little shack at American University called an internship office where you could sign up for internships.
Right.
So I actually did an internship in college at American University in contracting, and my first stop was the Naval Research Lab.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I never left. I spent 45 years in federal government. So, I did actually dream of contracting in college.
That's
so
awesome.
True story, But what was really fun about it is I got to travel the world. I got to buy all kinds of things, from major weapon systems to I think I was in I don't know what you call them, where they meld metal and things like that. That was my first trip, government trip, and I was so excited. And it was in Buffalo, New York, and never again did I wish for government travel again. But it's been a great career. And what I love about doing these kind of events with Eric is it really is at the practitioner level, the frontline level, so that people can take on these policies and new regulations and figure out how it's going to affect them back at their desk, because that's what matters.
Yep. And, you make a good point. Like there's so much to do here on the front lines, and I appreciate you both for that, for the insight. Contracts is an ever evolving field. There's always stuff to learn. The government's always sitting there going, what can we think we can do better? And again, like the evolution of government contracts has evolved over time to now we have the FAR, the DFAR, and the 10,000 million supplements we have for everyone else. So I'm going to skip a question. We're going to get back to NCMA here in a little bit. So just talking on some of the contracts, what's one thing, just give me one, it's one thing in contracts that you both really like? And I know for Michelle, she might want to give us like 20 or 30 different things because she loves this so much. She's been dreaming about contracts ever since she was in diapers, which she looks great for 21 years old. So what's one thing in government contracts that you like?
Eric, you go first. I need to think about that.
There you go.
Is that a smelting? I was trying to think of what kind of factory.
No, it's like forging.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think about it.
Fabrication?
Yeah.
But it's like in this really dark, dingy, hot place. And that's the first
That
place
sounds
I got to
brutal.
travel. Unlike being in Las Vegas or the beach where you are, Adam, that beautiful palm trees and so forth, you know. So yeah. So Eric, what was your favorite?
I mean, my favorite thing, and it's going to sound kind of corny, is the community. You know, it's a wonderful community. The people here try to help each other. You know, it's far different than complex commercial litigation in New York City, which is not that kind of community. And I still have some friends there, no doubt, but I also have some not friends there as well.
I was gonna say his use of the word "some."
Yeah. Um, so, I mean, I just love the community, how people try to pull together. They try to get to the right answer, the right decision. And that's what I really love about it. Besides what I mentioned earlier, just things changing all the time. That's what I think Michelle and I are going to highlight in our session is we're going to just talk about all the things that are changing because it's a constant drumbeat of things.
Yeah.
Very true.
So same here is the community. And for me, it's connecting people together. You know, it's my mind is always going, like I meet a person and I go, okay, how can I use them somewhere else? How can I connect them with someone else? And that's how we find the extraordinary speakers at our events is people don't realize that the job that they do and in executing their job, that their experience, people want to hear about it. You
Yep.
know, people want to hear from their peers, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not just about the success stories. It's about, well, I tried that and let's not do that one again, right?
Yeah.
Sharing that story, right, is
Yep.
important. So community and connection is important. Our World Congress this year in Nashville had over 3,000 people in person and another 1,000 that were virtual. I mean,
awesome.
it was just an explosion of connection and energy. And that's what I love is I love seeing everybody connecting and learning and getting what they need.
For sure. All right. So now I'm going to throw this one back to Michelle because I can't think of a better question to ask this for.
Oh, Lord.
Have you been involved with NCMA before? And if so, what do you like about NCMA? Because clearly you've heard of NCMA before because you work for them. So let me ask you this question. What drew you to actually want to work for NCMA National or HQ?
Oh, well, you know what? I worked for the government for 45 years and volunteered for NCMA.
Yep.
Now NCMA pays my salary and I volunteer. So, you know, the job that I do is no different than what I did at the Defense Acquisition University, and that's teaching and connecting people in the workforce.
Yep.
And it just is the freedom that you have when you're not working for, you know, in the federal space, because you have that fiduciary responsibility and et cetera, and the rules and regulations. Not that we don't have that at NCMA, but I can move a lot faster in getting content out there than sometimes when you work in a more bureaucratic organization. But we're able to partner with the government, as Eric said, using the NCMA Neutral Forum, where we can bring government and industry, the functional areas together in a safe place to be able to duke it out and figure out how do we, you know, how do we get the best for our war fighters, for the folks we take care of.
Yep. All right. And Eric, sending it over to you because you don't work for NCMA. So I'll go back to my original question.
He sort of does, because every time I call him and say a chapter needs you, he never says no.
He flies back out to wherever he is right now at some, you know, bar in the Maldives, and he's just there hanging out.
That's right.
So have you been involved with NCMA before? I think clearly the answer is yes. So what's one thing that you like about NCMA? We've heard a lot from both you at how, you like bringing industry and government together. So what's one thing you like about NCMA? Because it is a nice middle ground, but maybe there's something else you like.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned a bar in the Maldives because I was there last year, and I was there because
Of course you were.
But I was there because
For everyone out there listening, pre-show was a ton of fun, by the way.
I had all these Marriott points from traveling to different NCMA events in part, so I was able to go there for free.
Yeah.
Well, the flight still cost something, but the stay, which is usually very expensive, did not.
I see. I didn't get invited to.
I was just going to say, where was your invite, Michelle?
Yeah, I only get to go to, the local events.
We should start an NCMA chapter in the Maldives, perhaps. We should look into that.
Yes.
Road trip.
Yes.
How fast can I get there?
What do I like about NCMA? I mean, I got involved in NCMA just because I just thought it was an interesting organization, something that focused on contract management. I mean, it's easy.
Yep.
A lot of lawyers, and some don't. There's some that write a brief on legal issues, but I really like to know kind of what underlies those legal issues, what the top page of a contract looks like, what it means. Checking this one box makes a big difference versus not. When contracting officers need to put certain clauses in contracts. Like, I feel like you can't be a good government contracts lawyer without knowing those foundational things. And not that NCMA just touches on foundational things, but I think it's why I got involved in it is to kind of understand how contracts work from a very ground level, so to speak. And then I just got hooked on the community.
It's awesome.
I do have to say that if I had met Eric on the street, I would never know that he's an attorney. And the reason is he's so down to earth and so genuine in his conversations. And I think it's that foundation, Eric, that you believe in and you started with, that you can reach people where they are in those conversations and sharing the policy and update and your protests, what we've learned from those and passing those lessons to other people. And that's why I look forward every time we get to be together to be able to bring that magic to our community.
Yeah, and Michelle is awesome, of course. She has such a standing in this community that's so well deserved, and I'm just so glad to do these things with her, because I think if I did them alone, 5 people would show up, but because Michelle is involved, we have 20 times that amount.
I do have a question. And I ask this of Eric every time we do a presentation. Eric, will we be talking about cyber?
I think we probably will for just a little bit. There's so much going on. It's hard not to.
Yeah. So I do have another question. I'm not hijacking you, Adam, but I have a curiosity. So Eric, are you following these AI cases? Because we really need to talk about AI and the ramifications it has on the buyer and seller. For instance, solicitation and proposals.
Yep.
What are the things we need to watch out for? Is that something you can touch on also at our session?
Absolutely, yeah. Yes. I mean,
is that as exciting as cyber to you?
Yes, I mean, it's because it's going to change how, like cyber, it's going to change what we do, and you put quantum computing in that bundle too, which will also change how we do things, and how safe our information is, and how we go about protecting it. And AI will change. I did at the Boston meeting last year, the general conference event, the biggest event in March. Yes, the March event. Thank you. Words escape me right now. I had some slides on ChatGPT and how that was potentially changing government contracting. And I think it's really interesting to look at. Thankfully, if you're in the workforce now and at least 10 years or less from retirement, it's probably not going to impact your job at all. But obviously down the road, it'll help supplement what people are doing. Yeah. But more details at the event.
Yeah. Well, that leads me into my last couple of questions here. What can people expect to learn during this event as we wrap up this podcast?
We'll
Oh,
figure that out. We'll
yeah.
figure that out.
So, one of the things that Eric and I always get gigged on is when we do an event, people always say, well, do you have slides? And we never have slides because we never know what we're going to talk about. And so now Eric and I kind of put a slide deck together that we absolutely don't use, but we do forward that to people so that they have a slide deck. But the reason why we don't is we want to be free to talk about whatever is breaking that day. And, I see Eric all the time when we're on the stage. He's got his phone out and he's like, oh, just in, a proposed rule, and we should probably let everybody know.
Yep.
So there's so many things, and I'll share one, and then I'll pass it to Eric. One of the things I think we need to talk about is this return to work issue that is happening at OPM. There's some folks on the Hill that believe that government folks that are not working in the office may not be working. And I think it's going to be a huge challenge if we as America believe the best thing is for people to go back to the office. Now, having been a professor and teaching in the office, I love that. I love the connection. I love, looking at people, seeing their face. If they're wrinkling their face, I know they're not understanding. I love that being together. But I'm a realist. And I know that we got a taste even before COVID of telework and what is the right balance. And I think we should have that conversation at least for a couple of minutes during the presentation, because I frankly think, Eric, there's probably going to be some lawsuits about, making folks come back to work, folks that have, relocated, etc. Yep. But I think it bears at least chatting about a little bit while we're there in Boston. So, Eric, what do you think we should talk about?
Besides cybersecurity, of course.
Of course, that's top of my mind.
I think the return to work is a really interesting one because it impacts everybody, government and industry. And industry is facing the same issue. Law firms are facing the same issue. There are different law firms that have taken different approaches, including the one I'm at about return to work. And, my law firm is asking partners to lead the way and come back to the office more often. I'm more of an office person just because I live close to the office and I'm more productive there when I'm not traveling. I also think something that we haven't talked about much on stage, but I think is really interesting is domestic preferences.
Yes.
Huge. And yeah. And so OMB came out with new regulations on Build America, Buy America.
Yep.
So I'm sure we'll talk about that. And we don't often talk about, we usually touch on labor a little bit, but there's a new non-displacement of qualified workers reg that should be coming out any day. So it may come out by the time we have our session, but even if not, we could talk to the proposed rule, which I think will be almost identical to the final rule.
Huge in the small business world is the guidance for the 8A program and the rebuttal presumption of social disadvantage, and maybe we can put some, a box around what the narrative, some ideas on what the narrative would look like. Also, I found a case that you might find interesting about a False Claims Act liability for saying you're a small business when you're not.
Right.
So, that's something maybe, I think the case is the United States BidSolve Inc. versus CWS Marketing Group. So maybe you can take a look at that one. I think that's important. Also, there is movement afoot to raise the small business goals. And the federal.
I don't mean to cut you both off. I know we're both running long, and we're going to get into all of this kind of stuff. So you can see, this is going to be a very open-ended forum. We highly encourage everyone to join because you can hear this, Michelle and Eric talking back now. There are real life things going on that can be affecting anything that we could be doing going forward. Cyber, back to work, like you said, the lawsuit you just drew back up. This is why you should come to the event. So real quickly, I'm going to throw it back to the both of you before I plug the event. Is there anything else you both want to share?
How long do we have? Is this a 5 or 6 hour presentation? Because the first 5 hours will be on cyber.
Yeah.
I would like to have a little time extra to talk about some additional items, but I think this is, and they moved the location, Eric, I don't
Yes.
know if you know, to Hanscom. So it's going to be at Hanscom. I love the fact that the government folks will be able to join.
Yes.
Industry folks are going to have that wonderful opportunity to forge the traffic and drive through the gate. But having government and industry in the room and having them bring their questions, I think it's going to be just an explosion of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Eric, what about you?
I'm just looking forward to doing this with Michelle again. I think, when we do these things together, we never know exactly what's going to happen. She has a stack of paper. I don't know what's in that stack all the time. So it requires me to be prepared, very prepared. But, really looking forward to engaging with everybody there. Very much looking forward to it.
Super.
So we've talked about the event. We've gotten to know our speakers. So the event is Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. Like Michelle said, this has moved. We are now going to be at Hanscom Air Force Base in Lexington, Massachusetts. Please go sign up on the website, ncmaboston.org. Go sign up. Spots are going to be limited, and the base is going to need to know if you're coming as soon as possible. Make sure you get on the list. Michelle mentioned the traffic. I laughed at. I worked at a couple spots outside the air base. Make sure you register and get there early. The time's going to be from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have lunch served from 11:30 to noon, and the training is going to be about 2 hours. Though, with the way this has gone, it could be 10 hours. You may just have to bring a pillow, a blanket. We're all going to hang out at the base all night. The cost is $30 a person. It's $10 per government employee. Thank you both for this amazing get to know you. I can't wait to see you both in person. And that'll be it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name's Adam from Michelle and Eric. We'll see you at the event again Wednesday, October 18th.
See you later. See you.
Bye, everybody.
See you there.
Bye.